You know those stories about HOAs from hell? Well, mine's worse. My heart still hammers in my chest when I close my eyes, seeing the flicker of a matchstick just feet from my family's entire livelihood. I'll never forget the acrid smell of gasoline, the way the air crackled with a malevolent energy, so thick and heavy you could almost taste the venom in her words. This is a blight on the neighborhood, a fire hazard, she shrieked, her voice a brittle, piercing whine that seemed to claw at the stillness of the afternoon. Karen. Her name itself felt like a curse. She stood there, a vision of entitled fury in her designer clothes and immaculate manicure, a scarlet jerrycan in her hand like a grotesque handbag. My family's farm, generations of toil and love, was her blight. What was her crime? Planting a few native wildflowers around our barn to attract pollinators and protect the soil from erosion. A minor, beautiful act of sustainability that didn't fit her perfectly manicured, sterile vision of suburban living. My teenage son, Alex, his face pale and tight, had the presence of mind to raise his phone. "What are you doing, Karen?" he asked, his voice shaking but firm. She just laughed. A cruel, tinkling sound. "Doing what's best for the community. Alex, you'll thank me for it when your eyesore is gone." She wasn't just threatening. She was reveling in it. My father, a man of few words and endless patience, stepped forward, a quiet fire in his eyes. "You don't want to do that, Karen," he said, his voice low and steady. She ignored him, a flicker of satisfaction playing on her lips as she leaned over a pile of dry hay, her hand moving to strike the match. "Wait, did you see that?" The way her eyes darted to the right. A quick, almost imperceptible glance toward the road. That's the moment I knew something was off. My mind, a whirlwind of fear and adrenaline, suddenly found a pinprick of clarity. Why would she look at the road? Who was she expecting? My father's quiet observation, "You don't want to do that," wasn't just a warning. It was a carefully placed seed of doubt. As she moved to strike the match, a car pulled up. Not a police car, but a nondescript sedan. A man in a suit got out, adjusting his tie with a nervous twitch. He was one of the other HOA board members, a man named Gary, who had always seemed to shrink in Karen's shadow. He rushed over, his face a mask of panicked disapproval. "Karen, what are you doing?" The fire chief said no. "Remember," he whispered, his voice a frantic buzz. A new piece of the puzzle. A crucial, damning piece, just dropped into place. She hadn't been acting alone. They had been planning this, and the fire chief had already shut them down. My breath hitched. This wasn't just a spontaneous act of petty cruelty. This was a conspiracy, a premeditated attack on my property. Karen's face, a second ago a mask of triumphant malice, fell slack. Her eyes widened, a tiny flicker of fear replacing the hatred. A silence descended, a heavy, deafening kind of quiet punctuated only by the distant hum of crickets and the frantic beat of my own heart. It was then, as Karen's composure began to crack, that I noticed a small detail. A single, faded, yellow envelope tucked into the waistband of her expensive pants. Barely visible, the words on the envelope were a stark, bureaucratic contrast to the fiery drama unfolding. Final notice of violation. But it wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to Karen. A sudden chill went down my spine. The twist. The truth wasn't just about her wanting to burn my farm down. It was about her own desperation. She was trying to burn my farm down because she was losing her own. My mind raced, the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place with a frantic, satisfying rhythm. I had a phone in my hand, recording, and Karen's expression was priceless. The color had drained from her face, her confident sneer replaced by a gaping mouth. You said you'd take care of it," she stammered, turning on Gary, her voice an ugly, strangled gasp. Gary, a man clearly not cut out for this kind of dramatic confrontation, held up his hands in surrender. "I did, Karen, but they said no. It's a legal thing. They have to notify everyone on the property line." My father, ever the quiet strategist, took a single step closer to Karen. The fire chief said no. Karen. What fire chief? The one you tried to get an illegal permit from last week. Karen's eyes darted from me to Alex. To my father. Then back to the car. She was trapped. I have a right to defend my property values. She spat. But the venom was gone. Replaced by a hollow desperation. Your property values. Funny. Karen. I said. My voice dangerously calm. The raw fear from a moment ago morphing into a cold, hard anger. The notice in your pants says your property is in foreclosure. Doesn't it? Alex's jaw dropped. Gary winced, looking down at his shoes. Karen froze. A statue of pure mortification. The sound of a crow cawing in the distance seemed to mock her. The wind picked up, rustling the dry leaves. A gentle sound that felt like the earth itself was whispering a verdict. Her desperate act wasn't just about my wildflowers. It was about covering up her own financial ruin. A last-ditch effort to prove to the world, and to herself, that she was still in control. The lawsuit she had threatened us with for our fire hazard was a smokescreen. A desperate attempt to create a legal battle to distract from her own impending loss. Her arrogance, her hateful entitlement, had been a front for a pathetic, crumbling reality. And then the moment arrived. The climax. The wind whipped a small gust of dust around us. And Karen's composure shattered completely. She lunged. Not at me. Not at Alex. But at her car. Scrambling to get away from the scene. From the truth. You'll pay for this. She screamed over her shoulder. Her voice cracking with fury and shame. But my father, with a calmness that belied the chaos, simply said, the fire chief said you need a permit. Karen, an official, legal permit for a controlled burn. And you didn't get one. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. A final, definitive blow. You're trespassing. And you're attempting arson. We've got it all on camera. The sound of my father's words, so simple and final, landed with the weight of a judge's gavel. The legal mistake. That's what Gary had been referring to. Karen, so consumed by her own self-importance, had believed she could simply ignore the law, that her will was enough. She had tried to get a permit for a controlled burn to clear our land of its messy wildflowers. But when denied, she had assumed she could do it anyway, using the other board members as her flimsy, terrified accomplices. She had forgotten one crucial detail. Even if she had been granted a permit, it would be a permit for a controlled burn, not a full-scale arson attempt on my property, which is what she was attempting. The distinction, a fine legal line, was her undoing. The car roared to life, kicking up a plume of dust as it sped away, leaving behind the small, incriminating jerrycan lying in the dirt. A silent testament to her malevolence. A sense of exhausted relief washed over me. A physical weight lifting from my shoulders. It was over. For now. The real battle, the legal one, had just begun. A few weeks later, the final nail was hammered into Karen's coffin. The video Alex recorded, paired with my father's meticulously documented evidence of her repeated harassment and the HOA's illegal attempts to interfere with our land, went viral. It was picked up by local news, then national. The outrage was immense. Karen was not just a symbol of an overzealous HOA, but a criminal. The community turned on her. The other board members resigned in disgrace. And Gary, in a tearful confession to the police, provided a full account of Karen's scheme, including her desperate foreclosure situation and her illegal attempt to burn the farm. She lost her position on the board, her reputation, and eventually, her house, her whole scheme, born of a toxic mix of arrogance and desperation, unraveled because she forgot one simple legal fact. You can't get away with arson just because you're a self-proclaimed neighborhood hero. The legal mistake wasn't just about the permit. It was a fatal miscalculation of her own power and the law's reach. As for us, the farm is thriving. The wildflowers have bloomed, a vibrant splash of color against the green. Our neighbors, who were once too afraid to speak up, now bring us baked goods and offer to help with the harvest. The HOA, now run by a group of sensible, reasonable people, has even adopted a new charter that encourages sustainable farming practices. We won. But it wasn't just a win for us. It was a victory for common sense, for the simple beauty of nature, and for standing up to bullies, no matter how powerful they think they are. The ending wasn't just sweet. It was inspiring. Was Karen's downfall a fair and just outcome? Or did the collective public shaming go too far? What's the difference between fighting back and going for the jugular? I'd love to hear your thoughts.